The stars stretched endlessly before the viewing screen of the horizon's edge, a deep space survey vessel that had been traveling for 3 months beyond Neptune's orbit. Captain Han Jiho stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the distant lights with the calm expression that had earned him command of this mission. His crew trusted him completely, even when their assignment took them farther from Earth than any human had traveled before. The ship hummed with quiet efficiency. 53 crew members worked at their stations, monitoring instruments and checking data streams. Their mission was simple: map the outer regions of the solar system and search for resources humanity could use. Nothing exciting, nothing dangerous, just routine work in the endless dark. Yoon Dae-ho sat at the communications station, his young face illuminated by the soft blue glow of his screens. At 24, he was the youngest officer on the ship, but his skill with signals and transmissions had earned him his position. He had been listening to the background noise of space for hours, the random static and radiation that filled the void between worlds. Then something changed. His hand froze over his keyboard. He adjusted his headset and increased the volume, his eyes widening. The static had a pattern. It repeated every 17 seconds, a mathematical sequence that could not be natural. His heart began to race. "Captain," Yoon Dae-ho called out, his voice cracking slightly, "I'm detecting something unusual." Captain Han Jiho walked over to the communications station, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. "What kind of unusual?" "A signal, sir. It's artificial. Definitely artificial." Yoon Dae-ho played the recording through the bridge speakers. Everyone stopped working to listen. The sound was strange, almost musical, with tones that shifted in mathematical progressions. Dr. Park Min-ji, the ship's chief xenobiologist, rushed from her laboratory to the bridge. Her dark hair was tied back in a practical style, and her lab coat was stained with chemical markers from her experiments. She had spent her entire career hoping for this moment. "Play it again," she demanded, pulling up a data pad. As the signal repeated, she began inputting the sequence. Her fingers flew across the screen, translating the mathematical patterns into visual representations. "This is a distress call. Multiple sources, at least 7 different signals overlapping." The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what this meant. They were not alone in the universe. Captain Han Jiho made his decision quickly. "Helm, plot a course toward the signal source. Maximum speed." "Sir, that will take us out of our designated survey area," the helmsman replied, though his hands were already moving to comply. "Noted. Do it anyway." The horizon's edge changed course, its engines burning bright as it accelerated toward the unknown. The journey took 6 hours. As they approached the coordinates, their sensors began detecting something massive ahead. Dr. Park Min-ji worked frantically at the science station, analyzing the readings. "Captain, there's a structure out here. It's huge, maybe 3 kilometers across. The energy signature suggests active power systems, but I'm not detecting any life signs." "Put it on screen." The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge gasp. Floating in the darkness was a station unlike anything humanity had ever built. It was elegant and alien, with curves and angles that seemed both organic and mechanical. Light still glowed in some sections, but parts of the station looked damaged, as if it had been abandoned in a hurry. "Sir, I'm detecting a cloaking field around the station," the tactical officer reported. "It's failing now, but this thing has been hidden here for a long time. Our sensors would never have detected it if the cloak was working properly." Captain Han Jiho felt his pulse quicken, but he kept his voice steady. "Prepare a boarding team. I want to know what that station is and why it's here." 2 hours later, Captain Han Jiho led a team of 6 crew members through the airlock and into the alien station. Their magnetic boots clanked on the metal floors as they moved through corridors lit by emergency lights. The architecture was wrong for human eyes, with doorways that were too wide and ceilings that curved in unexpected ways. Dr. Park Min-ji walked beside him, her scanner sweeping constantly. "The atmosphere is breathable, but the temperature is cold. This place has been without main power for at least 2 weeks. They found the control center on the 3rd level. Banks of alien computers lined the walls, their screens dark or flickering with unknown symbols." The tactical officer, a woman named Ko Yoon-ji, moved to one of the consoles and connected a translation device they had brought from the ship. "Give me a few minutes," she said, working carefully. "I think I can access their data cores." Those minutes felt like hours. Captain Han Jiho watched the empty corridors nervously. half expecting something to appear. But the station remained silent except for their own sounds. Finally, Ko Yunji made a noise of triumph. "I've got it. The translation is rough, but I can read their logs." She paused, her face going pale. "Captain, you need to see this. The logs told an incredible story. The station had been here for 200 years, hidden in Earth's solar system. An organization called the Galactic Union had placed it here to watch humanity. The logs contained detailed reports about human history, wars, technological development, and culture. Humanity had been observed like insects under glass. Dr. Park Minji read through the entries with growing anger. They were keeping us in quarantine. There's a whole galactic civilization out there, hundreds of species, and they decided we were too dangerous to contact. "Keep reading," Ko Yunji said quietly. "It gets worse. The most recent entries were frantic. Something called the Voidborn had attacked Union territory. A war had started 15 years ago and was going badly for the Union. They were losing worlds, losing fleets, losing entire civilizations. Finally, 3 weeks ago, all the quarantine stations around other developing species had been ordered to withdraw. Every ship, every soldier was needed at the front lines. The last entry was a personal message from the station commander. It was addressed to whoever found the station. The message was simple and terrifying. "We're sorry we never told you the truth. We're sorry we have to leave you unprotected. The Voidborn consume everything. If they come here, there will be no one to help you. May your gods protect you because we cannot." Captain Han Jiho stood in the alien control room processing this information. Humanity had neighbors they never knew about. Those neighbors had been watching them for centuries, and now those neighbors were fighting a war they were losing, against an enemy that destroyed civilizations. "Captain," the communications officer on the horizon's edge called through his headset, "we're detecting multiple ships entering the system. Large vessels moving at incredible speed. They're heading away from us toward the edge of the solar system." Han Jiho made his decision. "Everyone back to the ship now." They ran through the corridors, their movements frantic. Within minutes they were back on the horizon's edge and the ship was accelerating hard. Captain Han Jiho ordered them to follow the retreating alien fleet at a safe distance. What they found 3 hours later changed everything. At the edge of a neighboring star system, a battle was taking place. Hundreds of ships fought in the darkness, explosions lighting up the void like deadly flowers. The alien vessels moved with grace and power, firing weapons that looked like streams of pure energy. But they were losing. Against them was something that made Han Jiho's blood run cold. The enemy ships were organic, twisted things that looked like they were made of black metal and diseased flesh. They moved like living creatures swarming and adapting. Every time a Union ship fell, the Voidborn consumed it, growing stronger. Dr. Park Minji stood beside him, her hand gripping the back of his chair. "What do we do?" Captain Han Jiho watched the battle and thought about everything they had learned. Humanity had been judged as too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable. But right now people were dying out there, people who had watched over Earth for 2 centuries, even if they had done it from hiding. "We fight," he said simply. "Sound general quarters. Charge all weapons. Take us in." The horizon's edge raced toward the battle at maximum speed. Every crew member sat at their station with sweating palms and racing hearts. They were a survey ship, not a warship. Their weapons were designed to clear asteroids and debris, not fight in fleet combat. But Captain Han Jiho's order had been clear, and no one questioned it. On the viewing screen, the battle unfolded like a nightmare. The Galactic Union ships were beautiful even in combat, their hulls gleaming with colors that shifted in the light of weapons fire. They moved in coordinated formations, centuries of military doctrine guiding their tactics. But the Voidborn fought with terrible efficiency. Their organic ships twisted and writhed, absorbing damage that should have destroyed them. When Union vessels exploded, the Voidborn would surge forward and consume the wreckage, their ships growing and changing. "Tactical analysis," Captain Han Jiho ordered. Ko Unji worked frantically at her station. "The Union ships are more advanced, but they're outnumbered 3 to 1. Their formation is collapsing on the left flank. There's a medical frigate breaking away from the main fleet. It's damaged and trying to escape, but 4 Voidborn fighters are pursuing it." Han Jiho saw it immediately. The medical ship was slower than the others, marked with symbols that even humanity could recognize as indicating mercy and healing. The Voidborn didn't care. They closed in like sharks smelling blood. "Helm, intercept course for that medical ship. Maximum burn. Sir, we'll be in weapons range in 90 seconds. Those 90 seconds felt eternal. The crew watched as the medical frigate's shields flickered and failed. The void-born ships circled it, preparing for the killing strike. Then the horizon's edge burst into range, and Han Ji-ho gave the order. Fire everything. The survey ship's mining lasers and explosive charges were never meant for combat, but at close range they did terrible damage. The first void-born fighter never saw them coming. The mining laser burned through its organic hull, and the creature ship screamed a sound that came through on the communications channel, making everyone on the bridge flinch. It spiraled away, leaking fluids into space. The other three void-born turned their attention to this new threat. They were faster than the human ship, more maneuverable. Their weapons fired streams of something that looked like liquid darkness. When it hit the horizon's edge, alarms shrieked throughout the ship. "Shields at 60%, Ko Yoonji called out. "That stuff is eating through our armor like acid." Captain Han Ji-ho gripped his chair. "Evasive maneuvers. Keep firing." The helmsman, a veteran named Park Dong, threw the ship into a spin that made half the crew sick. They dodged 2 more attacks, but the void-born were learning their patterns. Another hit and the shields dropped to 30%. Then the medical frigate joined the fight. Even damaged, it still had weapons. Beams of pale blue energy lanced out, cutting through one of the void-born fighters. The alien ship broadcast a message, translated automatically by the Horizon's Edge computers. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself. Why do you fight for us?" There was no time for long explanations. Captain Han Ji-ho opened a channel. "This is Captain Han Ji-ho of Earth Vessel Horizon's Edge. We found your observation station. We know about the war." Silence for 3 seconds. "Then Earth? The quarantined world? This is impossible." "Tell that to these void-born," Han Ji-ho replied, as another mining laser found its target. "We can talk later if we survive." Together, the 2 ships fought off the remaining void-born fighters. It wasn't elegant combat like the fleet battles in the distance. It was desperate and ugly, with both vessels taking heavy damage. But they survived, and the void-born did not. As the last enemy fighter disintegrated, the medical frigate sent another message. "Captain Han Ji-ho, you have saved 147 lives today. Please follow us to a safe distance from the battle. Our commander will want to speak with you." They retreated to the edge of the combat zone, where several other damaged Union ships had gathered. The medical frigate's crew began emergency repairs while its captain transported over to the horizon's edge. The alien who materialized in their airlock was like nothing any human had ever seen. She stood on 4 delicate legs, her body covered in soft fur that shimmered with iridescent colors. Large compound eyes dominated her face, and her arms ended in precise 3-fingered hands. She wore a uniform that marked her rank, and she carried herself with obvious authority despite her injuries. "I am Ambassador Rin Taeval," she said, her voice melodic but strained. "I speak for the Galactic Union in first contact situations, though I never expected to make contact under such circumstances." Dr. Park Min-ji stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her fear. "I'm Dr. Park Min-ji, xenobiologist. This is Captain Han Ji-ho. We have so many questions." "As do I," Rin Taeval replied. "But first, you must understand the situation. The Voidborn are winning this war. We've lost 37 worlds in the past year alone. The Union has been fighting for 15 years and we're exhausted. Your species was kept in quarantine because the Council believed you were too violent, too unpredictable. They feared what you might do to the galaxy." Captain Han Ji-ho felt anger rising. "So you watched us for 200 years and decided we weren't worthy of joining your civilization?" "Yes, and I opposed that decision every time it came before the Council." Rin Taeval's compound eyes reflected the bridge lights. "I studied your species extensively. I saw your wars, yes, your violence and your cruelty, but I also saw your art, your music, your capacity for sacrifice and love. I argued that you should be contacted, but I was outvoted. The conservative factions won as they always do. Until now," Han Ji-ho said. "Until now. The quarantine fleets were recalled because we have no choice. Every ship, every soldier is needed. The Council assumed you would never know we existed. We would either defeat the Voidborn and return to watching you, or we would fall and the Voidborn would eventually reach your world." Dr. Park Min-ji touched one of the wall panels, bringing up data they had recovered from the observation station. "You have detailed records of everything humanity has done for 2 centuries. Every war, Every peace treaty, every technological advancement. You know us better than we know ourselves. That's true, Rinteval admitted. Then you know we're not good at sitting on the sidelines when others are fighting for survival. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout both ships. The main Union fleet was breaking formation. Koyunji pulled up the tactical display and everyone's blood went cold. Something massive had entered the system. A void-born mothership, 5 times larger than any other vessel on the battlefield. It was a nightmare made real. A mountain of twisted organic technology that pulsed with terrible life. Smaller ships swarmed around it like flies around a corpse. The Union commander broadcast on all channels. All ships, full retreat. We cannot win this engagement. Jump to rally point Kestrel 7 on my mark. They're abandoning the system, Koyunji whispered. Captain Han Jiho watched the massive enemy vessel advance. It was destroying everything in its path, consuming Union ships that moved too slowly. The Federation fleet was jumping away, their faster-than-light drives creating brilliant flashes as they escaped to safety. Captain, Rinteval said urgently, your ship must retreat as well. You don't have jump capability, but if you burn at maximum speed away from here, you might escape before... No. Han Jiho's voice was quiet but firm. Captain, that thing will destroy you in seconds. Retreat is not cowardice. It's survival. How does your jump drive work? He asked suddenly. Dr. Park Minji understood immediately. Captain, no. The theory might work, but we've never tested. How does it work? He repeated. Rinteval looked between them, confused. Dr. Park Minji pulled up schematics on the screens. It creates a temporary rift in space-time, folding the distance between 2 points. It requires enormous energy to maintain the field. Captain Han Jiho turned to his chief engineer, a quiet woman named Lim Heun. Can we modify our experimental FTL drive to create an unstable rift? Lim Heun's eyes widened as she understood what he was suggesting. Yes, but Captain, if we create an unstable rift that close to that much mass, the explosion would it destroy that mothership? Probably. Along with us and anything within 1,000 kilometers. The bridge was silent. In the distance, the last Union ships were jumping away. Soon, only the Horizon's Edge and the medical frigate would remain. Captain Han Jiho stood and faced his crew. I'm not ordering anyone to stay. We have escape pods. Anyone who wants to evacuate has 2 minutes. No one moved. Yundaeho spoke up, his young voice steady. Permission to stay at my station, sir. Permission granted. Han Jiho looked at each crew member in turn. It's been an honor serving with all of you. He turned to Rinteval. Get your ship out of here. Jump away. The ambassador stared at him with her alien eyes. You're going to ram that thing. Close enough. We're going to create the biggest explosion in this system's history. Why? You just learned we exist. You owe us nothing. Captain Han Jiho smiled sadly. Maybe that's exactly why we have to do this. Go. Tell your council that humanity wants to talk. Tell them we're not as scary as they thought. Rinteval touched her hand to her chest in what might have been a salute. I will remember this. All of us will remember. She transported back to her ship, which immediately jumped away. The explosion had been visible from 6 star systems away. When the Horizon's Edge detonated its experimental drive at the heart of the void-born mothership, the unstable rift tore reality itself. For 3 seconds, space-time folded in on itself, creating a miniature black hole that consumed everything within 1,000 kilometers. Then it collapsed, releasing enough energy to light up the darkness like a newborn star. Against all odds, the crew survived. The explosion had thrown their ship clear at the last moment, though the Horizon's Edge was barely holding together. Emergency systems kept them alive while they drifted in the void, waiting for death or rescue. 3 hours later, rescue came. A Union fleet arrived and found the wreckage of the mothership and 1 battered human vessel still broadcasting a distress signal. Now, 2 weeks later, Captain Han Jiho stood in a place no human had ever seen. The Galactic Council chamber was vast, built on a scale meant to hold representatives from 847 different species. The ceiling stretched so high it seemed to touch the stars themselves, which made sense since the station orbited an artificial world constructed specifically for these meetings. Han Jiho wore his dress uniform, clean and pressed despite everything they had been through. Beside him stood Dr. Park Minji, uncomfortable in formal clothes but standing straight with determination in her eyes. Behind them waited Ambassador Rinteval, who had insisted on accompanying them despite her own injuries still healing. The council members sat in a massive semicircle, each in chambers suited to their biology. Some breathed oxygen like humans, others required methane or ammonia atmospheres. Some had 4 eyes, others had none, and sensed the world through methods humanity didn't understand. But all of them were looking at the 2 humans with expressions that ranged from curiosity to hostility. High Chancellor Vorn presided over the council from an elevated platform. He belonged to a species called the Keltons, tall and crystalline with bodies that refracted light in prismatic patterns. His voice when he spoke resonated with harmonics that made the air vibrate. The council recognizes Captain Han Jiho of the world-designated Earth, currently under quarantine status. Captain, you stand accused of violating first contact protocols, engaging in unauthorized military action, and entering Galactic Union space without permission. How do you answer these charges? Han Jiho had been coached by Rin Teval on how to address the council with proper respect. He ignored all of that advice. I answer that we saved lives while your fleet was running away. The chamber erupted in noise. Dozens of species tried to speak at once, their translation devices creating a chaos of competing voices. High Chancellor Vorn raised one crystalline hand and the chamber fell silent. You dare to insult this council? I dare to tell the truth. We found your observation station. We learned you've been watching us for 200 years like we're animals in a zoo. Then when your war came to our doorstep, you ran. We had to make a choice and we chose to fight. A council member who looked like a mass of floating tentacles spoke up. The humans are violent and unpredictable. We have observed their history. Constant warfare, genocide, nuclear weapons. They are not ready to join civilized space. Dr. Park Minji stepped forward. You're right about our history. Humanity has done terrible things. We've fought wars over resources, religion, and stupidity. We've built weapons capable of destroying our own world. But you know what else we've done? We've also built hospitals and schools. We've created art and music. We've reached for the stars because we want to understand the universe. Every species has darkness in its past. The question is what we choose to do with our future. Another council member, this one resembling an upright bear made of metal, spoke in a grinding voice. Pretty words. But actions matter more. Your species destroyed a void-born mothership using a suicide attack. That demonstrates either bravery or insanity, and I'm not certain which. Both, Han Jiho admitted. War brings out the best and worst in everyone. We did what needed to be done. High Chancellor Vorn was about to respond when an alarm sounded. The chamber's central display activated, showing tactical information. Another void-born fleet had been detected approaching the capital system. A large one. The council erupted into organized chaos. Military commanders appeared on communication screens, reporting positions and readiness status. The Union fleet was in position but outnumbered. Standard procedure called for evacuating the council and essential personnel while the fleet held the line. Then something unexpected happened. New contacts appeared on the display. 200 ships emerging from faster-than-light travel. Ships with human design, bearing Earth symbols. At their head was a massive vessel broadcasting identification codes that labeled it as Soul's Pride, flagship of Admiral Kang Hyun. The Admiral's face appeared on the screens. He was an old man, scarred from decades of service with hard eyes that had seen too much death. This is Admiral Kang Hyun of the Earth Defense Fleet. We've been monitoring communications since the Horizon's Edge made first contact. We're here to help. High Chancellor Vorn's crystalline body flared with angry light. This is an act of aggression. You bring warships into our capital system without authorization. Call it whatever you want, the Admiral replied. But those void-born ships don't care about politics. Captain Han Jiho is there with you, yes? Tell him his crew sends their regards. They survived because of his actions. We all did. Earth received their warning about the void-born threat, and we decided that hiding while others fought wasn't the human way. Before anyone could respond, the void-born fleet arrived. 100 ships, all organic nightmares that made human eyes hurt to look at them. The Union fleet moved to intercept, and Earth's fleet moved with them. On the council floor, military commanders were shouting contradictory orders. Han Jiho watched the tactical display with a trained eye. They're going to lose, he said quietly. The Union tactics are defensive, designed to minimize losses. But the Voidborn adapt too quickly. They need something unpredictable. A new figure appeared on the communication screens. President Kim Seojin of the United Earth Government. a woman with gray hair and tired eyes. "Hi, Chancellor Vorn. My military advisor insists I should wait for your permission before engaging. But I see ships trying to kill people, and I see other people trying to stop them. That's all I need to know. Earth stands with the Union whether you accept our help or not." "You have no idea how to fight the Voidborn," a council member protested. "True," the president admitted, "but we have something you seem to have lost. We're willing to take risks." In the space above the capital world, the battle began. The Union fleet fought with discipline and precision, their formations perfect and their tactics proven over centuries. They were losing anyway. The Voidborn were too many, too adaptable. Every time the Union tried a strategy, the enemy learned and countered. Then Earth's fleet arrived and everything changed. Human tactics were chaos incarnate. Ships broke formation without warning. Fighters flew in patterns that made no tactical sense. The humans used their weapons in ways that violated every rule of civilized warfare, firing nuclear missiles at point-blank range and ramming enemy vessels when their ammunition ran out. It was messy. It was ugly. It was effective. The Voidborn couldn't adapt to tactics that had no pattern, to enemies who seemed willing to die if it meant taking the enemy with them. For the first time in years, the Voidborn fleet began to falter. On the Soul's Pride, Commander Lee Salmon led a dreadnought charge that broke the enemy formation. Her ship took terrible damage, but the hole it created allowed Union fighters to exploit the gap. A young pilot named Shin Taejin flew a suicide run that destroyed a Voidborn command ship, though he somehow managed to eject at the last second. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, both fleets had taken heavy losses, but the Voidborn retreated, leaving behind their dead. The capital was saved. In the council chamber, the representatives watched in stunned silence. They had witnessed something that changed their understanding of the universe. These primitive humans, these violent creatures they had kept in quarantine, had saved them. High Chancellor Vorn's crystalline body had lost its angry glow. He spoke quietly. "Perhaps we were wrong about your species." President Kim Seojin's face on the screen showed no satisfaction, only exhaustion. "We can discuss philosophy later. Right now, people are dying out there. Your people and mine. If you want our help to fight this war, you'll have it. If you want us to leave, we'll go. But make a decision." The council voted. It wasn't unanimous, but it didn't need to be. By a margin of 412 to 435, humanity was granted emergency membership in the Galactic Union. Not full membership, not yet. But enough to fight together. An ancient council member spoke up for the first time. It was Architect Prime Zelith, an artificial intelligence that had survived for 10,000 years, representing a species long extinct. Its voice was like wind through empty corridors. "I have observed the rise and fall of 147 civilizations. The ones that survived shared one trait. They valued something more than their own survival. The Voidborn fight to consume. The Union fights to preserve. Humanity fights because others need help." 6 months had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Union's war against the Voidborn. In that time, the galaxy had learned what humans were truly capable of when given purpose and resources. Earth's industrial capacity, developed through centuries of competition and innovation, had shocked every species in the Union. Shipyards that once built commercial vessels now produced warships at a rate that seemed impossible. Admiral Cho Minho stood on the bridge of his flagship Indomitable, watching the fleet assemble for the largest offensive operation humanity had ever attempted. Around his vessel, 200 human warships floated in formation alongside 300 Union vessels. It was a combined fleet, the first truly integrated force in galactic history, and he commanded it. Cho Minho was 53 years old, with gray at his temples and scars from a combat tour on Mars during the Colony Rebellion. He had studied military history his entire life, reading about ancient wars and modern conflicts, always looking for patterns and lessons. Now he commanded a fleet of aliens and humans, fighting an enemy that wanted to consume everything living in the galaxy. "Admiral, the last ships are reporting ready," said Commander Lee Soman from her station on the tactical bridge. She had survived the Battle of the Capital, though her old dreadnought had not. Now she commanded a new hybrid vessel, built using both human and alien technology. "All Union commanders confirm they're ready to proceed." "Good. Begin final briefing to all vessels." The plan was ambitious to the point of madness. The Vardis cluster was a region of 30 star systems that had fallen to the Voidborn 3 years ago. It had been home to 5 billion people across a dozen different species. Now it was a Voidborn staging ground, from which they launched attacks deeper into Union space. Every military analyst agreed that retaking Vardis was impossible. Admiral Cho Minho had built his entire strategy on proving them wrong. In a laboratory aboard the Indomitable, engineer Nam Jisoo made final adjustments to her latest weapon design. At 31, she was the youngest chief engineer in the Earth fleet, but her genius for reverse engineering alien technology had made her invaluable. The device in front of her looked simple, a cylinder about the size of a human torso, but it contained compressed fusion reactions based on human nuclear weapons technology. The Galactic Union had abandoned nuclear weapons 3,000 years ago as barbaric and inefficient. Nam Jisoo had taken one look at their reasoning and called it foolish. Nuclear weapons weren't elegant, but they were effective. She had spent 6 months miniaturizing fusion bombs and wrapping them in void-born biomatter, harvested from destroyed ships. The result was a weapon that could penetrate void-born armor because the enemy's own biology wouldn't recognize it as a threat. Crazy but brilliant, a voice said behind her. She turned to see Captain Shin Tae-jun leaning against the doorway. He wore the flight suit of a fighter pilot, with more than 30 kill marks painted on the shoulder. He was 26 and already a legend among both human and alien pilots. "You're supposed to be prepping for the assault," Nam Jisoo said, but she smiled. They had become friends during the months of preparation, bonding over their shared tendency to ignore established rules. "My fighters are ready. I wanted to see if your bombs would actually work." He walked over to examine the weapon. "This thing is going to solve our armor penetration problem?" "If my calculations are correct, yes. If they're wrong, it'll just explode and kill everyone within 100 meters. So standard Navy equipment then." Shin Tae-jun grinned. "I like it." The fleet departed for Vardis 3 hours later. The journey took 2 weeks using a combination of human FTL drives and Union jump gates. During that time, the crews trained together, learning each other's languages and tactics. Cultural officers worked overtime helping humans understand alien customs and teaching aliens about human behavior. Dr. Park Minji had been assigned to the fleet as chief xenobiologist. Her expertise with alien life forms had proven crucial in understanding the Voidborn. She spent most of her time in the science labs studying samples of Voidborn tissue and looking for weaknesses. What she found was both fascinating and horrifying. The Voidborn weren't natural organisms. They had been created, or rather corrupted. Deep within their cellular structure, she found traces of technology, ancient biomechanical systems that had been designed to rewrite living tissue. Someone had built a weapon meant to transform organic life into something controllable, and that weapon had escaped its creators. "We need to tell the Admiral," her assistant said, a young scientist named Ko Junsu who specialized in alien biochemistry. "I know, but I need more data first. If I'm right, then this war isn't what anyone thinks it is." The fleet arrived at Vardis to find the system heavily defended. Thousands of void-born ships patrolled between the worlds, some as small as fighters and others as large as cities. At the center of the system, on what had once been the capital world, a massive organic structure pulsed with terrible life. It was a hive nexus, the coordination point for all void-born forces in the region. Admiral Cho Minho studied the tactical displays with Commander Lee Salmon and several Union commanders. The senior Union officer, a reptilian being named Keth Roval, expressed concerns about the plan. "Admiral, this assault is too direct. We should probe their defenses first, look for weaknesses." "We've been probing void-born defenses for 15 years, Cho Minho replied calmly. "They adapt to every tactic you try, so we're not going to be clever. We're going to hit them with overwhelming force before they can react." The battle began at dawn on Vardis Prime, though the sun that rose was sickly and wrong after years of void-born corruption. The combined fleet dropped out of FTL directly into the system's gravity well, something that violated every Union safety protocol. But it put them in engagement range immediately, before the Voidborn could organize a response. Captain Shin Tae-jun led the first fighter wave. His squadron consisted of 30 human pilots flying hybrid craft designed by Nam Jisoo's engineering team. The fighters were fast and aggressive, armed with her fusion weapons. They screamed through the Voidborn formation, releasing their deadly cargo. The explosions were spectacular. Void-borne ships that had seemed invulnerable to conventional weapons suddenly began dying. The fusion reactions tore through their bioarmor, and the enemy found themselves fighting a weapon they couldn't adapt to fast enough. But the Void-borne were not helpless. For every ship they lost, they learned. Their formations began to change, spreading out to minimize damage from the fusion weapons. They started targeting the fighters with coordinated fire, forcing Shin Taijun's squadron to break formation. This is Taijun to all fighters. They're adapting. Switch to Pattern Chaos 7. Pattern Chaos 7 was something the human pilots had developed during training. It had no tactical logic, no predictable movements. Each pilot flew on instinct, trusting their wingmen to cover them without verbal coordination. Union pilots watching the battle were horrified by the lack of discipline. But it worked. The Void-borne couldn't predict movements that had no pattern. On the capital ships, Commander Lee Soman directed the main assault. Her tactical genius lay in knowing when to follow doctrine and when to throw it away. She had studied every battle the Union had fought against the Void-borne, looking for the moments when they had nearly won. Now she combined those near victories with human tactics, creating something neither side had seen before. The Indomitable led a dreadnought charge directly at the Hive Nexus. Every military doctrine said this was suicide. Capital ships were too valuable to risk in close combat. But Admiral Cho Minho had calculated that the Void-borne would never expect such a direct assault. He was right. The enemy formation opened to envelope the attacking ships, expecting to destroy them quickly. That's when the second wave hit. Union vessels using long-range weapons fired into the gap created by the human charge. The Void-borne found themselves caught between two forces, unable to adapt to both simultaneously. The battle raged for 18 hours. Thousands of ships fought and died in the darkness. Entire squadrons were lost. The Indomitable took damage that would have destroyed a lesser vessel. But slowly, inevitably, the combined fleet pushed forward. Dr. Park Minji monitored the battle from her lab, but her attention was focused on something else. As the fleet got closer to the Hive Nexus, her instruments began detecting unusual signals. They were communication patterns, but not Void-borne standard. Something was trying to make contact. Kojunsu, are you seeing this? Her assistant checked his instruments and went pale. That's coming from inside the Hive Nexus. It's using Union communication protocols, old ones from 30 years ago. Park Minji realized what that meant. 30 years ago was when the Void-borne first appeared. Whatever was in that Hive Nexus, it remembered the Union from before the war started. She opened a channel and began attempting to translate the signal. The voice that responded was broken and corrupted, but unmistakably intelligent. Please, stop. Cannot control plague consuming us. Who are you? Park Minji asked. We were Vardis Colony Administration. Trying to stop it, failed. Became part of it. Trying to warn you. The plague. Not natural weapon, old weapon. The transmission cut off as a massive explosion rocked the fleet. The discovery changed everything. Dr. Park Minji's findings spread through the fleet like wildfire, then reached the Galactic Council within hours. The Void-borne plague was not a natural phenomenon or an alien invasion. It was a weapon, an ancient biomechanical system designed by the Galactic Union itself 30,000 years ago, during a war that history had almost forgotten. The council convened in emergency session. High Chancellor Vorn stood before the assembled representatives, his crystalline body dim with shame. The records are incomplete, destroyed or classified so long ago that even most council members did not know. But Architect Prime Zelith has confirmed the truth. The plague was created as a weapon against an enemy species that threatened the early Union. It was designed to consume their biological systems and turn them into controllable servants. And it escaped, President Kim Seojun said from Earth. Her voice was hard and cold. You created a doomsday weapon and lost control of it. Our ancestors created it, a council member protested. We had nothing to do with this. You've been fighting this war for 15 years, General Beijuan interjected. And you never investigated where the Void-borne came from? You never wondered why they appeared suddenly after millions of years of galactic peace? The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some representatives demanded that the information be suppressed to avoid panic. Others insisted that the truth must be revealed. But one voice rose above the chaos. Councillor Rin Mavith, a snake-like being who had served on the council for decades, spoke with authority that demanded attention. This information must remain classified. If the citizens of the Union learn that their own government created the Voidborn, there will be chaos. Worlds will rebel. The Union itself may collapse. Ambassador Rin Tavel stood, her compound eyes flashing with anger. You propose to continue lying? We created this horror. We must take responsibility. Responsibility won't save the billion still living, Rin Maveth replied smoothly. Stability will. We can find a scapegoat species, claim they created the plague, the citizens will believe it, and the Union will survive. Captain Han Jiho had been standing quietly in the observers section, but now he stepped forward. No, lies created this problem. More lies won't solve it. The human has no vote in this council, Rin Maveth said dismissively. Then I'll take this information public myself, Han Jiho replied. Earth has full records of Dr. Park Minji's findings. We can broadcast them across the entire galaxy if we choose. The threat hung in the air. Rin Maveth's eyes narrowed dangerously. That would be an act of war against the council. Then make it not a lie, President Kim Seojin said. Tell the truth. Show the galaxy that the Union has the courage to admit its mistakes and work to fix them. The vote was close, but truth won. High Chancellor Vorn made the announcement to the entire Union. The response was exactly as Rin Maveth had predicted. Riots broke out on dozens of worlds. Several species threatened to leave the Union. Trust in the government collapsed overnight. But something unexpected also happened. Many species responded with determination rather than despair. If the Union had created this problem, then the Union had a responsibility to solve it. Admiral Cho Minho's fleet remained at Vardis, securing the system and studying the destroyed Hive Nexus. Dr. Park Minji worked around the clock with Ko Junsu and teams of Union scientists, analyzing the plague's structure. What they found offered hope. The plague had been designed with limitations, safeguards that its original creators had built in. Those safeguards had degraded over 30,000 years but weren't completely gone. We might be able to create a cure, Park Minji explained to the Admiral, or at least a treatment that could restore the victim's original consciousness. The people consumed by the plague aren't dead. They're trapped inside the void-born hive mind, still aware but unable to control their actions. How long would developing this cure take? Cho Minho asked. Years, maybe decades, and we'd need cooperation from the Voidborn themselves. That seemed impossible until the Voidborn made contact first. A single ship approached Vardis under a white flag, broadcasting in mathematical patterns that requested peaceful communication. Dr. Park, Minji was the one who answered. The entity that appeared on the communication screen was unlike any Voidborn they had encountered. It was smaller, more organized, and its organic structure seemed to pulse with purpose rather than hunger. When it spoke, its voice was a chorus of thousands merged into one. We are the collective voice. We speak for those who remember what we were before the plague. You have shown us that the corruption can be fought. You have killed many of us, but you have also freed many from endless hunger. We wish to negotiate. The galaxy held its breath as humanity and the Voidborn began the first peace talks in the war's history. General Bei Jiwon represented the military perspective, arguing for total annihilation of the plague. Dr. Park Minji argued for attempting a cure. Ambassador Rin Tavel worked to find middle ground that all sides could accept. The collective voice made a proposal. The remaining Voidborn would retreat to dark space, the regions between galaxies where no other species lived. They would remain there in self-imposed exile, while scientists worked on a cure. In exchange, they asked only that they be allowed to exist rather than face extermination. How can we trust you? General Bei Jiwon demanded. You've consumed entire worlds. We did not choose to become this, the collective voice replied. Every day we fight the hunger. Every moment, thousands of minds scream against the plague's control. We are victims as much as those we consumed. Grant us mercy and we will grant you peace. Not everyone accepted this proposal. A faction of Union species, led by Counselor Rin Maveth, assembled a fleet to hunt down and exterminate every remaining Voidborn. They saw the plague as an abomination that must be destroyed, regardless of whether the victims could be saved. Captain Han Jiho's younger brother, Commander Park Junho, led a human task force to intercept this extermination fleet. Park Junho was younger than his brother by 5 years, but equally skilled as a military officer. He commanded the destroyer Justice's Edge and had earned a reputation for never backing down from what he believed was right. "This is Commander Park Jun-ho to the extermination fleet. Stand down immediately. You are violating the ceasefire agreement." "We do not recognize any agreement with monsters," came the reply from the fleet commander. "Move aside or be destroyed." Park Jun-ho looked at his crew. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing it might mean fighting other Union forces. "All ships form defensive line. Do not fire unless fired upon, but do not let them pass." The standoff lasted for 6 hours. Two fleets, both technically on the same side, facing each other in the darkness. Finally, the extermination fleet opened fire, and Park Jun-ho gave the order to return fire. The battle was brief but brutal. Union ships fighting Union ships while the Voidborn watched from a distance. Commander Lee Salmon's dreadnought arrived with reinforcements, tipping the balance. The extermination fleet was forced to retreat, but not before Park Jun-ho's destroyer took a direct hit to the bridge. By the time rescue teams reached him, he was gone. Captain Han Ji-ho received the news while aboard the Indomitable. Admiral Cho Min-ho personally delivered his brother's personal effects, a small box containing letters, medals, and a photograph of their family back on Earth. Han Ji-ho thanked him quietly and returned to his quarters. He did not emerge for 2 days. When he finally came out, his eyes were red, but his voice was steady. "Has the ceasefire held?" "Yes," Ambassador Rintable told him gently. "Your brother's sacrifice convinced enough council members that peace was worth fighting for. The extermination faction has been officially condemned. The Treaty of Distant Stars was signed 3 months later. The Voidborn retreated to dark space as promised, monitored by a joint quarantine fleet. Dr. Park Min-ji led the research team working on a cure, making slow but steady progress. Some Voidborn victims were successfully treated and restored to their original consciousness, offering hope that more could be saved. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Union, with a permanent seat on the council. Ambassador Rintable was elected as one of the new council leaders, campaigning on a platform of transparency and accountability. High Chancellor Vorn stepped down, acknowledging that new leadership was needed for a new era. A memorial was constructed in orbit around Earth, a massive structure visible from the surface. It listed the names of every being who had died in the war, human and alien alike. Commander Park Jun-ho's name was engraved in a place of honor, alongside thousands of others who had sacrificed everything for peace. Captain Han Ji-ho accepted promotion to admiral, but requested a specific assignment. He wanted to command the quarantine fleet that monitored the Voidborn border. "Someone needs to watch them," he explained to President Kim Seojin. "Someone who understands that they're not monsters, just victims who need help. I can be that someone." His new flagship was named Humanity's Hope, a hybrid vessel built using the best of both human and Union technology. On the day of its launch, Dr. Park Min-ji came to see him off. They stood together on the observation deck, watching Earth spin slowly below them. "Your brother would be proud," she said quietly. "I hope so. He always wanted to make the universe a better place."